But it's not better for the consumer.
I grew up in a household where my father owned a small business. I understand the primary objective of a business is to make a profit. I have no problem with that. The problem is when you want to let business run the government in the best interest of the business, when government is supposed to be of the people and supposed to be representing the best interest of their citizens. I'm not against...
Corporations are people.
No, they're not.
It's been ruled by the Supreme Court.
That's what they say.
Well, when they commit a crime, which corporation is sitting in a cell somewhere in a jail? If they people, somebody ought to be in jail. But let me get on to my other deal. This is part of, over the last years, you've seen this well-financed public relation campaign to make unions look bad. They've spent a lot of money. It's a very coordinated campaign. Why? Why? Because unions are one of the few things left that can stand in the way of the people with the money who think they ought to run everything. It's almost this attitude of, why should working people have a voice in their government? I dare you. Well, when you look at a national campaign, who other than the very wealthy can get a large group of people together and at least some kind of money to stand in the way of just getting working men and women run over? It's unions. It's unions because we bring the voice of hundreds of thousands of millions of people together into one voice to fight for one thing with a common cause and a common message. That really upsets rich folks who think because they got a lot of money, they ought to be in charge, they ought to make the rules, and it's almost that plantation mentality about you ought to thank me you got a job. I never had a job in my life that I didn't earn my paycheck. I produce something for the person I work for that's of value to them. I expect them to compensate me in something that's value to me. Let's find the free market and have it to a place where it's a fair and equitable wage. It's back to the health care. I guess it all boils down to, is health care a privilege or is it a right? I'm going to tell you, in this country, the richest one in the world, where we can give tax breaks to Walmarts and Exxons and the oil industry and everybody else, we ought to be able to assure that all of our citizens have access to themselves and their children, being able to go to the doctor, go to the hospital. Rush Limbaugh had a hearing problem, had some huge expensive operation, and they fixed his hearing problem, and I'm happy for him. I didn't want anybody.
He caused his own hearing problem.
It doesn't matter what
he was doing that hillbilly heroin, and that knocks your hearing out, okay?
But why should Rush Limbaugh have access to a procedure that will allow him to hear because he's rich?
Because he's rich. You said it.
And if that's the kind of country you want, let the rich people run it, and that's what you'll get.
It looks like that's what we got.
Actually, and I haven't seen it, but there's a movie came out where the rich people live off on this other outer space planet, and the poor people stayed on Earth. And if you got sick on Earth, you just died. If you were rich and you could afford the other deal, they had some medical treatment up there, and boom, you got well. I just don't think that's fair. I don't think it's Christian. I don't think it's morally correct, and I don't think it ought to happen in a country that has the resources to provide for all of its citizens.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, we've been talking about the affordable health care. Organized labor's been offering affordable health care for over 30, 40 years. We also offer a pension. You hear people talk about Social Security, that Social Security is not going to be around. I mean, that's one of the things that the right side always is saying, Social Security is going bankrupt, It's not. But we have, organized labor has been offering a supplemental pension fund, which has gotten to be sometimes, a lot of these plans, it's more than what they're going to get on their Social Security. So, you've got a person that's been working 35, 40 years out in the sweltering heat or the freezing cold, and and it's time for them to retire, they should be able to get in their house, enjoy the air conditioning, the heat, maybe go on a trip or two. They've raised 3 or 4 kids, not only send them through high school, but send them through college, and have scrimped and saved. Mama has done without the dress. Daddy's done without the Harley Davidson to provide for their kids. Now it's a time in their life where they should really be enjoying it. And if all you have is Social Security, guess what? You're still scrimping and saving. You're still trying to make ends meet. With organized labor, you've got this little supplemental plan, which is a defined benefit with the building and trades, and you get this check every month. And boy, is it nice. You know, it's really, really nice. But the public doesn't know that.
Well, you know, you talk about the pension and being able to enjoy the luxuries. In some circumstances, I hope that's the case, but it's as much about once you retire and get on a fixed income, will you at least be able to provide for the necessities in life, a roof over your head, food on the table, and look, let's be clear, pensions are not a gift.
You work for them.
Not only do you work for them, you pay for them. You know, we've got a big debate in public employees. Public employees pay for their pension every paycheck. They take money out of their check that's their pension contribution that's supposed to be matched by the employer, which is the problem in the public pensions right now. The employers hadn't paid their share. But look, I was around when we started pensions in the union. We took those in lieu of wages. All right, we're going to, we go negotiate a contract. We're going to get $1 an hour raise. And we took part of that dollar and put it in pension. So we got 50 cents or 75 cents of the dollar raise. That came out of my pocket.
Hold on.
I paid for the pension I'm going to get later on.
But you had, and this is what I want everybody to understand, because they hear about these big bad union bosses and all this. I'm the big bad union, scary union boss. And I got news for you. My kids are not even scared of me. So. Well, but that's what the right has. You just said about the campaign that they've been coming down on unions. But let's get something perfectly clear. We have a package. That package is what we have negotiated over the years. And part of that is when we negotiate a contract, we go back to the members, and the members say, okay, you got that $1 an hour raise. Let's take 25 cents and put it on our pension fund. Let's take a dime of that because the insurance, we need to fund that a little bit more. So we want to take 10 cents of that could have gone on the check, but the majority rules in the unions. So if you have 200 people at that union meeting, and 101 vote in favor of taking the money and putting it on there, then it passes. So majority rules. So, that's my thing is nobody forced these people to do this. I'm talking about our members. Nobody forced them to do it. They want to do it because they want a better life. They saw their mom and daddy, coming up in Social Security not making ends meet, and they wanted a pension. They wanted health insurance because they saw somebody lose everything they had because they didn't have insurance, and one of the family members got sick and had to go to the hospital. Well, that's the whole thing about it.
By far, the biggest reason of bankruptcy in this country is medical bills. For people who get sick and they get in a bind and they get medical bills way past what they could make in wages to pay for them, and they end up going bankrupt. It is by far the number one cause of bankruptcy in the country is having an illness that causes you to have medical bills. But, they've come up with this new term to make things sound bad called entitlement.
Yeah.
And call it what you want, but if I paid for it, when I go to get it, I'm fine with you calling that because I think I'm entitled to it. I have paid Social Security since I was probably 15 years old. I always paid my share. I didn't have a choice. They took it out of my check. When it's like the young guy who's this FICA guy getting my money. You ought to be entitled to what you paid for. I ran a pension fund for the union before I came to work for the AFL-CIO. If I'd have run that pension fund like the government has run Social Security, I would be sitting in a jail cell. They would have put me in jail for doing it. The government has misused the money, just like in the state government where there's a schedule of payments for the pension plans that would make them whole. It was what they agreed to up front. They haven't made the payments. That's caused the problem. The people haven't, the workers haven't missed a payment. They pay their payment.
Started under Ronald Reagan administration, too.
So, you know, what really gets me, and I'm sure we're going to talk about the 5th congressional race and how all of that came about. And Rodney Alexander's a nice guy. Worked with him in the legislature. Worked with him as a congressman. Rodney Alexander's going to retire from Congress. And it's my understanding with the number of years that once you're in Congress over 6 years, your retirement is 100% of your salary. So his retirement is going to be his congressional pay. I don't fault him for that. God bless you. That's the rules. You ought to take it. Then we cut this sweetheart deal where he's going to go to work for the state. So he gets to go
Bobby
back.
Jindal?
Yes.
Yes.
He has the ability to go back and buy back his years of service in the legislature and the police jury based on somewhere around 8% of what his salary was at that time, which the number floating around is $25,000. So he goes and buys all of that back. He gets to retire from the state at a percentage of the highest wages that he makes, the highest 3 years. Well, he's going to be at about $140,000. So the rough estimate is he's going to draw $70,000 a year in a state retirement on top of his full salary as a congressman. I don't blame him. I'd take the deal too. But I tell you what is upsetting. I got to go fight for somebody who's going to get $1,000, $1,100 a year after working 30 years for the state, after making their payments on time when they were due, never drawing their money out, and the state wants to tell me they can't afford that, and then they're going to make a sweetheart deal to spike somebody's pension. Now, like I said, it's not personal about Rodney. Rodney, I'd take the deal, dude. If I was you, I would take the best financial deal I could get to provide. His wife's a very nice lady. I've worked with her in a bunch of places. Y'all worked hard. You ought to get your deal. But why can the governor make a sweetheart deal for one person and then turn around and want to take away from the working men and women who've done the work? You know, the people at the top are not the one who clean your bedpan, who issue your driver's license, who make government work every day. And the government wants to go after them and cut those with the least. And then they got the ability to go make these sweetheart deals for the people at the top and spike a pension and give them a good deal. That's just not fair.
Well, Lewis, let's talk about the race while we got a little time. You know, and I've met Rodney, and I think he's a great guy. You know, really do. And seems like a fighter. He seems like he's a middle of the road and no nonsense kind of guy until I started reading about what's going on. You know, it seems to me like this is a setup deal. He is retiring before his term's up.
He's resigning, and then from what I gather, the governor must be involved in this because he's offering him a job, and they're handpicking somebody to take his place. And I'm talking about the governor and. What's going on with this? I mean, is it set up like it looks like, or is it just? Well, it's
politics as usual.
It sure looks like a backroom deal. And look, I work with Neil Reiser. Neil is a very straightforward guy. I enjoy working with him. One thing I give you about Neil Reiser, you go to him with an issue, you have a conversation, his word is good as gold. If he tells you he's with you, he's with you. If he tells you he can't be, so be it. He's one of the pleasures of the legislature that you just have an upfront conversation. And unlike many people down there now, his word is gold. And, I got a lot of respect for him. But, like I said, if I'm Rodney and you offered me the deal, I would take the deal. I can't fault a man for wanting to take care of his future. I don't know that he invented the deal, but the deal was there. Neil Reiser wants to go to Congress. Somebody lays on the table and says, look, I'm going to give you a head start. I don't know that I fault Neil Reiser for that. But I'm going to tell you what's a little strange. This is supposed to be the ethical governor who wants transparency, and he's cutting backroom deals. Now, the people of the 5th Congressional District ought to be a little upset that the governor wants to decide who represents you instead of a democratic process of everybody get in the race and you get to go vote. That's how democracy is supposed to work.
Well, there's
we got a
bunch of
governor
them jumped in, though, right?
Yeah. There's some folks upset about this deal. This is not the way democracy is supposed to work. You're not supposed to rig the race, Governor.
Jindal has endorsed has always lost in most cases. Am I right?
Well, if I was...
Jindal's not going to come out and endorse him.
Well, I mean, is this... Well, I don't know about this Mr. Reiser.
Well, okay. let me tell you about...
Give us a background on his politics.
Well,
I just said he's a great guy.
Well, no, that's not
Neil Reiser is a Republican.
Is he a Tea Party Republican?
I find him to be very open to conversations about... When you get the legislature in Louisiana is getting more like Congress about its party lines and what's the party support. Right. I got to give Neil credit. Senator Reiser will talk to you about the issue and the effect it has on people. He's one of the most fair-minded people that I deal with. It's not, I've seen him when the governor wanted to go one way, and Neil said that's not right, and I'm not going there. And then there's other issues we disagree on. But, that's politics, and I can live with honesty. And like I said, this is not about Senator Reiser. Everybody got their politics back home, what it is they think their district wants them to do, and the people they represent. If they're doing in their best conscience, representing the people who sent them to the state capitol, and it conflicts with my interest, so be it. I try and explain to them that the majority of the people who live in your district work for a living, and what we're proposing is either good or bad for people who get up and go to work every day. But like I said, this is not about Senator Reiser. This is about the governor cutting backroom deals.
When's the election coming up, Lewis?
Qualifying for this election starts Monday.
All right.
Why would he want Mr. Reiser in Congress?
Because the 5th District is the most viable district outside of Cedric Richmond's congressional district for a Democrat to win. Rodney Alexander got elected as a Democrat.
And then swapped.
And then swapped parties later on. He swapped parties. I would suggest to you that during that election cycle, being in a different party gave him a better committee assignments in Washington. But even, there's Republicans and there's Republicans. There's Republicans who will not talk to organized labor, who don't care about working people. They're going to vote the party line of the Republican Party. And then there's Republicans who say, tell me what the issue is, and I have an open mind, and right is right. And Rodney's made some good votes for working men, even as a Republican. But to me, those are the two different... Well, you got Democrats. Some of them vote like Democrats, and some of them just got a D behind their name.
Well, and I mean, my thing with the whole deal is, with that district over there, and it's just like any other district. The area I live at, out in Central, if you don't have an R behind your name, you're not going to get elected. And over there in the Rodney's district, at the time when he first ran, he was a Democrat, and he got elected. And and if you look at statistics, any incumbent, I don't care what it is, if it's a councilman or senator or whatever, it's hard to beat an incumbent. I mean, it just is. And
if an incumbent is doing a good job, he's seeing people, he's helping people every day, and
his name's out there, it's going to be hard to beat him. So once he got to office and he switched to the Republican Party because of, like Lewis just said, to get better positions on some committees and things. Big E, you ain't said nothing. I want to know, what's your opinion? What's it going to take for us to upset this general administration and put one of our own in office to take Rodney's place over there?
It's going to take all of us coming together, getting our members, like we talked about, the number of members we got around the state. We'll look at that district, get our members' families, and it's going to take us getting out to vote. It's going to be about turning the vote out because you got a short time frame between now and the election. The election is in October.
Okay.
Election is in October. So it's going to be all about who can get the vote out.
Ernest, real quick for the listeners, when Lewis first got here, a little background on him. Give us a little background on how you got started in this and And now you became, where you at now?
Executive assistant to the guy he's sitting next to.
You refusing to call his name or something, Mike?
He called me goofy. Okay?
He won up to you.
Well, I started off, Neil, in the labor's union. I think 1976. The first job I actually had was 1975. I started off. My brother-in-law was business manager of the labor's union. Ran in 1974 and won. Introduced me to the labor's union, and the rest is history. I stayed there from that time up until 2008. I became, in 1988, I think it was, I became an executive board member. Auditor. Then I went to the executive board, moved on to president of the local, and I retired in 2008 as business manager. And I was fortunate enough to go to work with Mr. Lewis Rand at the AFL-CIO in 2009.
No, Lewis was fortunate enough for you to go to work for him.
You ask a man to introduce himself, he's not going to give you all the real accolades that Ernest deserves. Ernest is, the AFL-CIO, I work with the state organization that represents the state, but we have local affiliates. We call them central labor bodies. Ernest is the president of the Baton Rouge Central Body as well as working at the state level. But Ernest is one of the greatest advocates and voices for working men and women in Baton Rouge and across the state. He's worked in community activities. He works with the faith-based community. There's not a place or an event that goes on that Ernest is not involved. I couldn't do the job that I do without Ernest there with me. I tell you, we've got an old joke we've had for years that we're twin brothers. That we're interchangeable.
Why Mama liked him better.
Now she likes him better.
Mama does like me best. But, he is just a great champion for the working men and women of this state, and I can't say enough good things about him. If you're in the fight for a safer workplace, a better wage, ability to take care of your family, Ernest is one of those guys you want in the trenches working with you every day.
Oh, and I saw that years ago when I first got involved in the political aspect as far as in-house politics with my local, going to the building and trades. Ernest was the business manager at the time for the laborers, and with like anything, you have 17 different craft groups in there, and naturally all 17 are wanting the best, want the apple, the best apple for their group. And Ernest was always one there to bridge the gap and make us all work together as a team like we should be and like we do. And but he was always a cool-headed one sitting there. So my hat's off to him. And like I said, I shouldn't have asked him to give his background, because he shortened it up real quick. And he's the Labor Day picnic's coming up. Big E, he's always in charge of that, getting that going on. You want to throw a little shout out about that, Ernest?
This year our Labor Day event will be going on at the Baker Auditorium. We'll start at about 9:45. We'll line up at the Piggly Wiggly grocery store parking lot on Main. We'll have a parade that comes up Main Street in Baker to Groom Road. We'll disperse at Groom Road at the Baker Auditorium. We'll have food and fun for everyone.
Now, I got one question, Ernest. I know you're on top of this. Have they turned the button off on those speed wagons they got out there for us when we're driving in?
Everybody except they have a picture of you, Mike.
They got that speed wagon over there on the corner.
I don't think we'll get that far down, Mike. Hey. We'll stop before we get that far.
The Labor Day picnic was interrupted last year by a storm. But I'm going to ask.
You got the 3-year-old T-shirts left, right?
I'm fixing to ask this question. I'm gonna put Lewis and Ernest on the spot. Are we still having $100 for the hot dog eating championship?
Oh God! I even forgot about that.
That was Mike's idea.
Forgot about that. Look at him. Looks like he just ate 3 hot dogs, man. No.
But
It
I
looks
tell you
like-
what.
Hey, look at Jackie.
I
Jackie
think
saying
that's a
she
good
could get in
idea.
on that hot dog eating contest.
Hey, I don't know. I'm not an organizer of that, you know?
Well, it's a
Hot dog
do it,
eating
we'll do it. It's
contest.
fine with me.
I mean, it's July. It's Labor Day.
Yeah.
They got one in New York.
I never have to worry about running out of things to do, because if I ever didn't have anything to do, Michael Day would come up with something for me.
By the way, those eggs that I dropped, they are now egg drop soup, which is a staple at the Day House. White rice and egg drop soup.
Before we move off, first of all, I want to thank the mayor of Baker. Several years ago, he came up with the idea that he would like to partner with organized labor and celebrate Labor Day. He designated it as a day for his employees to see the appreciation that the mayor had, to see a government official who actually wants to recognize his employees and honor them, and he's opened his arms. That's why we're in Baker now. It's a partnership with the city of Baker, and particularly with that mayor. So I want to give Hal Rito a shout out. Thank him
now,
for the
is
record.
everybody invited, or is it just organized labor?
No, everybody.
Everybody's invited, Mike. Actually,
We wouldn't be talking about having a party if we weren't going to invite the people we were talking about the party.
Well, and
You know,
I
for the last 2 years-
I want to thank the mayor of Port Allen for showing us how not to do it.
no, seriously, Mike, back to Mayor Rito and his staff in Baker. For the last 2 years, we've not been able to have the event because of the weather. I actually was given a message to call Mayor Rito, and he told me, man, we got to have this thing.
Right.
Last year, the weather was bad. Damaged the building up there. Folks in Baker picking up tree limbs and trying to and he still wanted to go on with it.
Right.
But, I mean, out of respect.
And Neil
we
Miller's
couldn't do
got those T-shirts that'll be eligible for Social Security here shortly. So I don't know what year they are, but
Well,
And we'll.
hey, he throws around nickels like they're manhole covers. Okay.
Well, they ain't looking over your shoulder. They're looking over mine.
and we're going to have a special guest as our Grand Marshal in the parade. There is a candidate who has announced he's running for governor, a champion of working men and women in the legislature, and that's John Bell
David
Edwards.
Bitter? Oh.
But John Bell's wife, Donna Edwards, will be our Grand Marshal in the parade.
Right.
A public school teacher. As John Bell says, you have to do the right thing
Her
for
fault.
A public
school
school
teachers
teacher,
when-
that's a union member.
Yes.
It's her fault.
Well, John Bell says you got to do the right thing for school teachers when you got to go home and sleep with one at night.
There you
So, she's a very knowledgeable, exciting young lady. We're glad to have her there. We have events across the state. John Bell will be in New Orleans. We usually have about 1,000 people at that event in New Orleans. We'll have one in Lake Charles as well on Labor Day. So,
Well, when are you
we
going
want to invite.
Baton Rouge Labor Radio?
We will work on that. This is your
I
first.
got a couple of questions I'd like to throw at him.
And he can handle your questions. I'm not worried about
I'm
that.
good.
Actually, let's give him a plug while we're talking about him. The man graduated from West Point.
Whoa, I didn't know that.
Yes.
Tell us more.
The man has a 100% voting record with the NRA and a 100% voting record with Right to Life. I tell you this because
That's wedge issues to me.
he says that,
That's wedge issues.
for all the working men and women who have in the past maybe not cast their vote in the best interest of their pocketbook for social issues, you can take care of your pocketbook because I'll take care of men and women, and you don't have to worry about the social issues.
Well, that's, a lot of people vote on those issues. Guns, abortion, gays. I like to vote on my pocketbook.
Well, this is what I found over the years in being involved. When people are doing well, they worry about the social issues. And what happens is when you vote on the social issues, they tend to get in your pocketbook. And unfortunately, we got to wait till times get bad, jobs get hard, wages get stuffed down. Then people wake up and say, oh, maybe I ought to take care of my own interests. I had this conversation years ago. A gentleman called me during an election, and he said, I'm going to vote my family values.
There you go.
And he wanted an argument. It was clear. And I wouldn't argue with him. I told him, absolutely, you should vote on your family values. That's what I do. I guess the conversation then leads to, what is it that your family values? I said, I'll give you mine. My family values me getting a paycheck that puts food on the table. My family values health care, so that when we're sick or the children are sick, we have access to a hospital or a doctor and the medicine. My family values pension, so that at the end of our career, we can put a roof over our head and live at least some degree of dignity in our retirement years. Those are family values to me. You need to tell me whatever your family values are, that's what you ought to support. He said, I'm voting for Supreme Court judges. I said, okay. If that's what you value, I can't argue that. You have been to the Supreme Court, haven't you? He said, no. Why you ask that? I said, if it's the most important thing in your life, I would hope you've been there.
Yeah.
He said, I got to reconsider. I'll call you back later. Maybe my family does value, that I have a safe workplace and a fair wage and health care and pension benefits. We've let some folks with a lot of money and a well-financed campaign define who we are for a long time. As union members, as organized labor. It's time that we define ourselves. The Christian right doesn't have anything on union members. They're some of the most giving, caring, Christian-like people you've ever met. They take care, the whole principle of taking care of each other and being there as a brotherhood or a sisterhood in a union is one of the most Christian attitudes there is. When it comes to guns, I'll tell you, the union members of the state of Louisiana is gun-toting as anybody you can find. We all grew up hunting and all of that stuff, and we believe in the outdoors. They can go paint us as who we are, but we're just hard-working people who get up and go to work every day. And look, the union doesn't support people not working. Neil will tell you is a business agent. Ernest is a business agent. Guy don't want to go to work. Guy don't want to work. We'll cut him loose in a heartbeat. I can tell you, I know Neil Miller well enough to know if a company calls up and said, I have a hand that can't cut it, hit them, cut him loose, and I'll send you one that can do the job you need. We understand that what we deal with is qualified people who work hard. Louisiana historically, in the surveys from economic development, the surveys from the what they do every 10 years, the census, that Louisiana has one of the most productive workforces in the country. Our people work hard. Our people are productive. Y'all go paint us in the corner about being these bad folks, but we are what builds this state and builds this country, and we're the people that government ought to represent.
Go ahead, Big E.
No, I was just saying, could have said it better. Lewis is absolutely right. That we're all about fair wages. We're all about everybody getting his fair share. I mean, and the things we fight for, we've said a lot about unions here today, but we fight for the man that's on minimum wage just as well as we do the man that's making that top wage.
Absolutely.
So,
well, and then, Lewis was talking about, he knows Neil Miller well enough to know that if a guy's not cutting it out there on the job, if he's not cutting it out there on the job because he's not doing his job right, and it's his fault, we're going to cut him. But if there's a reason that he's being targeted out there, or there's some thing like that, we're going to fight for him. But with that being said, I have been pushing this, and I'm going to, because my international has done this, and we've got a standard of excellence. And when I first read, and it came from our international, and every trade union now has a standard. Basically, they might call it something else, but it's a standard of excellence. And when I first read it, I looked at it and I just threw it on my desk. And Billy Height's our general president, and I'm sitting in another meeting with him, and I can tell that he's very sincere about this, and he really means that we're fixing to push this. Bad enough to where we're getting these big posters in, and so then I get a memo about he wants these posters posted. He wants us educating our membership on it. So O'Neill gets this thing and really starts reading it, because it's 2 or 3 pages, and I start reading it, and I said, you know what? This really isn't a bad thing. It's everything I believe in. We think that a man should go to work, every day, ready,
or a woman,
man or woman can go to work every day, ready, willing, and able to go to work on time in a drug and alcohol-free environment. That's basically what this 2.5 pages says, you know, and what more can you ask of us? I mean, we're telling these contractors that we're going to supply them with craftsmen that are going to be able to go out there and perform their job. And if you look at, and I'm not talking about on the union side, I'm talking about on the opposite side. If you look at the absenteeism and the tardiness, it's unreal, you know, on what happens over there. And the unions had the foresight to come up with these, with the standard of excellence. You know, we don't want members that aren't going to go to work every day. They're going to be tardy every day. They're going to flunk drug tests. That's not who we are. That's not what we represent. We are supposed to be the best of the best, and that's why we came up with the standard of excellence. And I think it's a great thing. And you know, Lewis was talking a while ago about who we are and what we do. You know, and I've heard Lewis say this, and I've used it several times. We're no different than anybody else. Our kids are next to everybody's kids in school. We go to the same churches. We go to the same, the Labor Day deal. I mean, it's going to be union and non-union people out there, or people that aren't even affiliated, have no idea what a union is. We're all a family. And Ernest mentioned about us representing people. I've seen Ernest and Lewis in the legislation. They believe in the working men and women of Louisiana, period. And I mean, they do things that aren't involved with organized labor, but it's to help the people of Louisiana, the workers of Louisiana.
Well, let me give you an example. One of the big issues in many of the surrounding states around Louisiana don't afford workers this right anymore, but if you get hurt on the job, we think you ought to be able to go see your doctor, the one that you have a relationship, you trust, not the company doctor who's going to make a decision in favor of the insurance company or the company. We fight every day for choice of physician. We want you to get well. We want you to get back to work, but that ought to be done in the interest of your health and not in the interest of what's best for the premiums that the employer is paying, what's best for the insurance company. Insurance company is not in the business of paying claims. They're in the business of collecting premiums. So that's the issue we fight for every day. That doesn't say that union members get to go pick their doctor if they get hurt at work. It says that working people should get to pick their doctor. It's not a union issue. That's a workers issue. And so,
talk about the 40-hour work week. Talk about OSHA.
There's a lot of money being spent on raising the minimum wage right now. Excuse me.
Well, before we get off, I wanted to touch on something else.
Well,
I used to work with apprenticeship.
15 minutes.
And the first lesson that I taught in apprenticeship, I said, before you learn how to drive the first nail, measure a board, cut, this is the first lesson I want you to learn. Number one priority, the first day, the first minute on any job, is to make the person you're working for a profit. If you don't make them money, they're not going to be successful, and you're not going to have a job. Number one priority for a working man and woman should be to produce and make a profit for the company they work for. And if you will do that, then the union will fight that you get paid a fair wage for it, that you have a safe workplace to do it in, and that you have the job protections you should have. But this has got to be a partnership. We represent people who go to work. We do understand that in order to have those jobs, the company has to be profitable. Look, we go to the legislature and we talk about whether the state ought to be involved in giving tax breaks and incentives and all of this stuff. And to their surprise, I'm not against all of that. If the quality jobs is a state program, and it says that if it's the deciding factor about whether a company expands or comes to Louisiana, then we'll give them a tax rebate for the jobs they create. But the jobs have to pay at least $19 an hour. The employer has to offer his employees health care, in which they pay 75% of the premiums, and they have to offer to their family as well. If those are the kind of jobs that get produced for the citizens of Louisiana, I'm all for giving you an incentive. You take the other side of that coin, we got a company that moved into St. James Parish. We gave them huge amounts of tax subsidies. We actually cut a deal where their plant sits on public land, so they'll never ever have to pay property tax on it. And when you go there, you cannot find a Louisiana license plate in the parking lot on the construction job of building that plant.
They brought their own people in.
They brought people from every other state. That's fine. Look, if that's what you want to do in a free and open market, that's fine. But when you start negotiating a deal that's going to take tax dollars back out of the coffers, and you're going to get an advantage that other companies don't have, that ought to be done to the benefit of the citizens of the state of Louisiana. Economic development ought to be about providing opportunities for our own citizens. And I can't understand the government that can't negotiate a better deal than that. I'd like to negotiate with people like that every day.
Me too.
Now,
but if I'm going to give you something that makes you have an advantage over existing companies and other companies, such as hundreds of billions of millions of dollars in tax breaks, then you ought to be providing something for the people in the local community and within the state of Louisiana. When we enter in those deals, it ought not be about jobs. It ought to be about jobs for Louisiana citizens. They're the ones that have to come out of their pocket and come up with the tax dollars that you don't pay to provide the services of government. So
now, with that, I want to bring something personal up. You guys know that I'm out at the flea market September through June, and I sell work clothes. This is not a plug, okay? But I did. This is not a shameless plug, okay?
nothing wrong with honestly trying to make a living.
I talk to people, most of them, 99% of them are non-union. They're buying their own clothes. They're pipe fitters. They're carpenters, scalpel builders. Pipe fitters might have a toolbox on the back of their truck with $10,000 worth of tools in it, and they're buying their own fire retardant clothing. And you know, I talked to a couple of those guys from St. James Parish that could not get on that steel mill that you're referring to, okay? And they had one of them that, you know, it kind of just, there's not a lot that gets to me as far as grabbing at my heartstrings. I mean, you know, I'm not going to cry because the two Duck dynasties had a 50-year anniversary wedding renewal or something.
That's a thing at me and Karen.
You know, but the guy told me, he says, you know, it's kind of hard to explain to my wife, and he had a kid about 8 years old, 9 years old, and the guy, he doesn't have any training as a scaffold builder or anything like that, but he's been holding jobs here and there, jumping $12, $14 an hour scaffold builder. And he said, you know, he says, the little, the town that he lives in, I don't know, it's somewhere in St. James, but he says, you know, he says, I ride by and I see people with tags on their vehicles, mostly big pickup trucks, from Oklahoma, Texas, a lot of Texas. He says, and they're parked in the best restaurants that we got over here, and they're parked at the Army Navy stores or the stores they have in that little town. And he says, and I look, and he says, I can't afford to bring my family in here because I can't get a job there. You know, and like Lewis said, a lot of tax dollars went into that, and a lot of promises were made about local jobs. Now, I'd like to know, there's got to be a police juryman or somebody out there. I mean, I don't know how they work it.
Well, I will tell you.
He had to promise jobs to get this done, right?
The deal was cut under a former head of the parish president, not the current one, but met with the sheriff, with the parish council, with the parish, with the legislative delegations. None of them are happy about this deal. we've looked into it. We had some conversation in the last legislative session. If DED or Department of Economic Development is going to be the people making these deals, that they need to quit worrying about how many jobs they created, and they need to worry about how many jobs they created for the citizens of Louisiana. That's who's paying the bill for Department of Economic Development. And they need to, after the deal is cut, great, go find another deal. But we need to watch what we did. There's no follow-up. This is what we asked for, is that, after you cut these deals, go back a year later, 2 years later, see how it worked out for the local community. They're not buying anything from the local stores. They're not working the local people. This is not a good deal. I always equate it to, it's like, charity begins at home. If I got two boys sitting on the couch and they broke, I shouldn't be paying my neighbor $50 to cut my grass. I need to get one of them boys out in the yard cutting it. I need to take care of my home first. We need to take care of Louisiana. This is the Louisiana government who ought to be worried about the Louisiana citizens. If a company's coming here and everybody's coming from out of state to work the jobs, all the materials are coming from out of state, none of the local businesses are prospering, they're going to come down here and they're going to blow smoke in our environment that I got to breathe every day.
We're going to get the pollution. That's what we're going to get.
I just don't understand how you negotiate deals like that.
Lewis, let
me tell you on this other side. You look at the movie tax credits. Those that produce jobs, we've become the second largest film producer in the country. Those jobs pay extremely good wages. We've got a lot of people that we've trained to do those. And actually within the legislation, there's a bonus and an incentive for working Louisiana people on those movies. And those are the kind of deals that we ought to be looking for from our government is, if you're going to give away my tax dollars, then make sure that they're there to promote opportunities for Louisiana citizens.
Well, and when we've been, like I said, we on and off, we've been doing this doing a radio show for the last 5 years, Mike?
That's a while.
It's been a while, but, part of us moving over here is to, we know, and I know everybody that's listening reads the newspaper. We know what the work is coming. The work is most probably, realistically, a year off. When they really start. I mean, we got a lot of work going on right now in Louisiana, but the work that is coming is going to be unbelievable. All of the building trades are opening their doors up to the apprenticeship. All of the building trades are opening their doors up for the qualified people to come in, and Lewis made the mention at the beginning of this show that the more numbers we have, the better off we are, and we need to get these people in here to use Louisiana people, and so I would love to see, and what we'll do is get, if we got some callers that want to call in and ask about different trades, we do represent, and maybe Ernest, can you name all the building trades that we have?
We should have brought a list for that.
Building trade, we've got carpenters, laborers, pipe fitters, we've got electricians, millwrights, boiler makers, cement masons, and
elevator constructors.
Call you right back.
I think that's
roofers.
We've got the roofers, operating engineers. That's basically it that participates in the Baton Rouge.
Masons.
We got Teamsters.
And the Teamsters.
The sheet metal
workers,
the boiler makers. We've got a lot of different construction trades, and each one of these different construction trades has their apprenticeship. But we also, I want to emphasize that if we have people out there that are doing boiler maker work, or they're doing pipe fitting work, they're welders out there, they're combo welders, or they're a pipe fitter, A class, and they don't want to. I mean, they don't have to go. They're already craftsmen. They can come into our programs. I mean, into our union hall. I mean, we have open arms. I mean, this misconception that we have a closed door policy is anything but from the truth. We want new members. We welcome them in here, and I mean, the more people we have, the better bargaining power we have to get better health insurance, to get a pension, better wages, better working conditions. That's what it's all about.
And, you know, these apprenticeship programs are wonderful opportunities for young people, especially who don't have a desire to go to college, but have the desire to earn a decent wage, to start families, to buy homes, to buy cars, to do what it takes to be successful. Some of these programs are so good, they even offer GED classes along with their apprenticeship training that they get. They get the opportunity to earn a living, they get the opportunity to learn, and then also pick up that GED if they don't have it. So these are great programs, and I mean, we just can't say enough about them. You'd have to bring some of the folks out, I think, that have actually participated in these programs and tell what they do. Because you get a lot of young people that go into those programs who have no sense of direction, no idea what they want, but for people like Lewis and Neil who've actually been apprenticeship coordinators, they know what I'm talking about. But they sit down and talk to these guys and show them some direction, show them what it takes to be successful, and they jump right on it and live long, productive lives, take care of families. You know, I look back at my local, for example. The mayor of in Opelousas, St. Landry Parish, Don Cravens, worked summers out of our local. His dad was a member of the local. He brought Mayor Cravens along on the summers when he wasn't doing anything, and now he's the mayor of Opelousas.
The former senator of the state, and you know, that's funny because that's the kind of guy who understands the issues when you get there. He's actually been in the trenches. He's an attorney. Well, he's not an attorney. He has a very successful insurance agency as well as political career. There is something, since we got a new listening audience, that I made a note of and I wanted to mention. You know, whether you're the business manager of a local union or the president of the central body or the president of the state AFL-CIO, we don't get anointed to these jobs. We're elected. And so we're accountable to the members that we represent. And we have to do our jobs and represent the membership and the working men and women because, like I said, we don't just get anointed or decide we're going to have the job. We have to answer to the people who elect us. And so it's a democratic process where, you know, the members pick their leadership and we're responsible to them and we're held accountable to them. So this is something that we take serious as a responsibility to those people, and that's why we do what we do.
Well, and I want to also mention Lewis and Ernest. They approached the building and trade, I guess about 6 weeks ago, and I don't remember the gentleman's name, but the guy was really, and I mean, really involved in Second Chance. Somebody that got in trouble.
Mr.
Wyndham. And
Wyndham from Keelan, right? Keelan, Livingstone Parish?
No.
But this gentleman, he's really passionate about what he does. And like I said, Lewis and Ernest approached us, the building and trade. They came to a building and trade meeting, and we had a open house at Local 198, and all the different crafts were there and had booths set up. And we brought these young men and women in there that they got in trouble. I mean, you know, everybody's got a little skeleton or two in their closet.
They're ex-offenders. And
I'm gonna tell you, you know, they've changed their lives and they're looking for a different opportunity. And I tell you what, I really enjoyed that because you know, most of the people there were very sincere. They were very interested, and we did take quite a few into different apprenticeships, throughout the building and trade. And, you know, but that's just some of the hidden things that we do that people don't realize. So
gotta go, guys.
Well,
gotta go.
Let me do this. Thank y'all for the radio show. I want to hope that we generate a listening audience around here. Call in if you agree with us. Call in if you disagree with us.
There you go.
We look forward to communicating with you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. And this is Baton Rouge Labor Radio. I want to thank Ernest Stevens, Louis Wren, Neil Paul Miller. We're on WTQT 106.1 FM. That's LPFM. And you can catch rebroadcasts on Facebook at Baton Rouge Local Union 198, or you can go to YouTube and catch it. And as we say here on Baton Rouge Labor Radio, we haven't lost that, have we? If you work for free, You'll always have a job. Live better, work union. Have a nice day.